You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, Episode 16. In this episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, we continue our duck profile segment and we feature the Redhead, and we're also going to be joined by Shawn Stahl of RNT-V to discuss hunting traffic and pressured Canada geese. All right, welcome to the 16th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We've got a great show lined up for you this week. As we mentioned in the roll-in, we are going to continue our duck profile segment and feature the Redhead this week. And we're also going to be joined by Shawn Stahl of RNT-V to discuss hunting traffic and pressured Canada geese. Shawn is a well-known hunter in the outdoor industry and has got a lot of years under his belt chasing Canada geese. So we're really excited to have him on the show and think that he's going to really bring a lot of great information for all of you that are out there hunting in pressured areas and, you know, have problems getting on the X for permission or whatever reason. So some traffic tips as well included in that segment. As always, if you would like to engage with us here at the show, you can reach out to us on our HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast hotline, 724-609-FOWL, 724-609-3695. You can also find us at hpoutdoors.com. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter, as well as if you'd like to shoot us an email directly, you can reach us at info@hpoutdoors.com. Joining me in the discussion today, as he always does, is my trusty partner in crime, Dan Hrushka. Dan, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Busy week for me this week with things going on in my personal life and, prepping for our third and final split here. By the time this podcast actually airs, to all of you out there, I will be on my way back from Jamaica. My sister-in-law is getting married, so I'm very excited to spend a couple of days down in Jamaica before I come back up here and spend the next month and a half or so sitting in freezing cold duck blinds and chasing honkers and ducks. So a lot going on around my household at this time, but I'm excited to be chatting with you about waterfowl hunting as I always am at this time of the week.
Yeah, and we got our duck goes out Saturday's the last day. We have goose going to be coming back in, get back on the honkers, and then the main area that we duck hunt will come in at the end of December, I think, for about 4 or 5 days. So I'm trying to get out before work and drop a few more ducks before Saturday morning here, and it is what it is. I'll be thinking about you when you're down in Jamaica, and at least you'll have a nice tan when you get back, I'm sure.
Yeah. So you only have a couple more days left in the duck season, really, up there? That's it?
Yeah, it ends the 17th, I believe. Well, whatever Saturday is.
Wow.
This Saturday's last, or 13th.
Yeah, I guess your season runs almost through the entire month of October, though, where we get like 4 days in October and that's it. So I think if I had to pick, honestly, I'd rather have our season where it's a little bit later in the year. But you'll get to come down to Maryland, with us and scratch the itch there in January. So a little bit more duck slaying for you to do yet.
Yeah, and just from a migration standpoint, we never. All the ducks usually show up in mid to late January when our season's already been out for a couple weeks. But, right now we have some big old fat mallards, and, I shot a pintail the other day, and there's just so many redheads around. And today at lunch, I was driving by a couple spots and saw some canvasbacks. So something that we never see before Christmas, and it's here now in season. So I'm going to take a shot at that. So hopefully we knock a couple out tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. We've been fortunate to have a little bit of cold weather, especially up north, that we don't typically get this early in the year. So that's bode well for, moving ducks into the area a little bit earlier than normal. Couple things on the podcast front that we'd like to share with everybody. Last episode, we announced our newsletter that we're going to be getting involved with. So if you haven't already, please feel free to sign up on our website at hpoutdoors.com. On the podcast page, there's a mailing list slot there. You just fill in your email, and you'll get some periodic information from us that's just, good information about the show, or, announcements, that kind of stuff. As we mentioned last week, we're not, trying to spam up anybody's inbox with unnecessary stuff like that. And we've also got something new that we've introduced as well. We've put together basically an information survey for the listeners of this show. The survey can be found also on our website under the podcast page, and we've posted it onto our Facebook page as well, as the newsletter is there as well. But really, the survey is basically just a tool for us to help us get to know you guys a little bit better, as far as who's listening to the show, what kind of stuff do you like to hear, how long have you been hunting waterfowl, what do you like most about the show, what do you like least about the show, where can we improve, things like that. So it's 20 questions, I think, but most of them are multiple choice. It's really quick. It wouldn't take you very long at all to go through there and give us a little bit of information so that we can continue to improve the podcast. So thank you to all of those that have been on our website and Facebook page and have completed that already. And also thank you to those that will do so in the future. We appreciate all of your feedback, and certainly already getting some great feedback coming across the results that we've seen so far. So all really good stuff and really exciting information that we're looking forward to taking a look at as more of it comes in. So, Dan, this week we chose the Redhead as our profile duck. I've personally never killed a Redhead. It's up there on my hit list for sure, but I've yet to fill that void. Have you ever killed a Redhead?
I have not, and I've been staring at him a lot these last couple weeks. So, but I mean, if I were you, I would just put it on your checklist, because it seems like you're knocking that out pretty easy this year.
Yeah, I've been fortunate with that this year. But the end of our first split down here was tough. I mean, we got warm weather and no wind, and just the flights were really died off. So the split came at a good time for us here, and I'm hopeful that, with some of the weather that we've been having the last couple days, that'll get a nice push of new birds in here for the end of the year in the split. So I hope that some redheads are included in that nice push. So why don't we go ahead and jump into that right now, and let's knock out our redhead duck profile segment.
All right, let's talk about the redhead. The male and the female, they're around 20 inches. Females 19 respectively. So they're looking at around breaking 2 pounds. The male redhead has a reddish head and upper neck and a black lower neck, foreback, and breast. The remaining part of the back is a dark gray color. The hindback and the tail are brownish black, and a broad band of light gray extends across the gray wing, and that actually helps distinguish it from a scalp. And the feet are gray, and the bill is a light blue-gray with a whitish band behind a black tip. And the male call actually resembles the meow of a cat, which is pretty funny there. Female redheads have a reddish-brown head, neck, and breast with a buff-white chin and throat. And it has a indistinct eye ring and stripe behind the eye. The flanks are a warm brown, and the upper parts are darker and duller brown. And the bill is duller than the male's, but has a similar pattern. And the redhead's breeding habits, they breed in northern prairies of the United States and Canada and marshes of the West, and they actually prefer non-forested environments. And of the diving ducks, the redheads are the most common breeders in the United States, laying an average of 7 to 10 eggs, and they are very notorious for stealing canvasback nests. That's a little bit about the redhead.
The redhead's just a cool-looking duck, in my opinion. As far as the migration pattern for the redhead is there's a significant corridor basically from southwest Manitoba and sort of southeast Idaho down through the Gulf Coast. And then you've got another portion of the population that'll actually migrate east from the northern prairies down to, the Great Lakes, onto the Chesapeake Bay, and all the way down to Florida. Those are obviously the birds that we're seeing out our way. But an interesting fact about the redhead is that an estimated roughly 80% of all of the North American redhead population actually winter in the Laguna Madre of Texas and Mexico. So obviously, if you're looking for a bang-out redhead hunt, you know where to go late in the year, as 80% of the birds in North America are going to be in one spot. As far as population numbers, the redheads kind of held steady through the early 50s up through kind of holding steady between 400 and 800,000 birds. Basically in 2009, the survey had them at more than 1 million birds, which was sort of a plateau that they believe reached sort of in like the 2007 timeframe. For the 2013 survey, they were counted at 1.2 million birds, and the 2014 survey had them at 1.27 million birds. So that's basically a 6% increase year over year, and 85% increase over the long-term average. So redhead populations are thriving right now and appear to be very healthy and in good shape. As far as their food, they're diver ducks, so they feed on various seeds and pondweeds, wild celery, things like that, grasses, that sort of thing. But they'll also feed on, different aquatic insects and, small fish from time to time. So, much like many other diver ducks in that regard. But, the redhead's a really cool duck that, based on these survey numbers that we're seeing, really offer a great opportunity across the landscape of the U.S. to get on some really cool diver duck hunting action. So that is our weekly profile of the redhead. Okay, Dan. I think that this week's featured guest is probably one of the more knowledgeable, if not the most knowledgeable person that we've ever had on the show talking about specifically Canada goose hunting. If you've ever seen any of the Fowl Pursuit DVD series, watched RNT-V, lots of stuff on YouTube. Shawn Stahl is a world champion goose caller. He's a heck of a hunter, and just someone that when we got to thinking about, the topics that we wanted to cover on the show and Canada geese in general, he was the first name that came to my mind as far as we got to see if he'll come on and talk to us, because I've seen so many DVDs over the years and things that he's been involved with. I just know that he's just a wealth of information when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, and the topics that we're going over with him are something that towards the end of the season we struggle with. A lot of landowners around here will shut it down to just a few guys hunting it, or they'll hunt it for themselves. So when you're talking about hunting traffic and hunting pressured geese, this one hits home. So I'm definitely excited to talk to him and hopefully pick up a few tips that make our hunts more successful here.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that can that can't relate to hunting in pressured environments, or not being able to get quiet on the X and trying to pull birds into your setup when they don't want to be there. So I have no doubt that Shawn's going to be able to talk in depth about a lot of the techniques and stuff that he's used over the years to be successful in that regard. So, let's go ahead and not waste any more time, and we're going to welcome Shawn Stahl of RNT-V to the show. All right, our next guest on the show certainly needs no introduction, but I'm going to go ahead and give him one anyway. He is the co-host of RNT-V on the Sportsman channel. You may also know him from the Fowl Pursuit DVD series. Our guest is Shawn Stahl. Shawn, how are you?
Pretty good. How about you?
Oh, we're doing great. We got you, Dan and I, when we talked about different segments we wanted to cover on our show. Hunting pressured geese was one of the major ones that we wanted to cover, because so many guys just hunting, areas where there's a lot of competition for birds. And when we started, thinking about who we might want to have on the show to talk about this area, you were definitely one of the first names that came to mind, just simply because of the amount of time you spend in the field and, the experience that you have hunting in different scenarios and situations. So we're really glad that you're able to come on the show, and we certainly appreciate you giving us a little bit of time. And I just wanted to kind of start off. when you're hunting in a situation where you know you're going to encounter pressured birds, whether it be just simply because there's a lot of hunters in the area, or it's later in the season and they've just been getting pounded on for a long time, do you have a number one sort of rule of thumb that you kind of always carry with you when you know you're getting into that kind of hunting situation?
Well, it's not really a number one rule. Well, it is. It's kind of a rule. It's called the if then but if. It's one of the deals that if this is working, then you do that. So if something's working in an area for guys, you want to kind of stick to it until it stops. But if what everybody else in the area is doing isn't working, then you want to try something different. So I always want to know what's working and what isn't, and we kind of go and make adjustments from there. So if guys are using small spreads and they're hunting in the middle of the field, then that's kind of typically what we'll do. If guys are using small spreads and hunting in the middle of the field and that's not working, we may go with a big spread and hunt out of an edge row or something like that. But it's always an if then but if kind of scenario. It's never I never have like everything's not in a box kind of thing. You guys got to kind of try to do something different and try to react and read what's going on and then make adjustments from there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned decoys and that kind of thing, because one of the biggest questions that we get is guys want to know, how many decoys should I use? How many is too many? How many is too small? How should I set them up? That kind of thing. So and I know this isn't just a one answer question. So painting it with a broad brush here, when you're getting into an area, what kind of things go into the decision process to know how many numbers of decoys you're looking to use? How do you want to set the spread? And maybe even more, how is that spread going to change as the season goes on? As the birds, get more pressure and we get later in the year, how's that going to affect the way that you set up?
It's funny you should say that, because people ask all the time, what's a good early season spread? What's a good late season spread? How many decoys should I use? Quite honestly, I might use the same number of decoys and the same decoy spread on opening day as I do in the last day of the season. It just all depends on what's going on. But I want to, I take a look at it from the standpoint of, am I hunting the X? Am I running traffic? Am I, underneath birds running traffic? Or am I, slightly off the line running traffic? And what kind of cover concealment methods are there? And how many geese are in the area? If you're hunting the X and, there's only 100 geese that are using that field, well, certainly you don't need many decoys because they're coming there anyway. So you can get away with a handful of decoys, but you got to focus a lot of your effort on concealment. You got to hide. You got to be invisible, because if they see you, it doesn't matter how many geese are coming there. There could be 10,000 geese using that field, but if they all see you coming to the field, you're not going to get a shot under 60 yards. So, I'll take a look at how many geese are, if I'm hunting the X, as little decoys as possible. If I'm running traffic like we were talking about, you need to make a presence. You need to say, okay, we know you're going over here, but look, hey, there's a big party over here. You might want to come check it out. And a lot of times when I run traffic, I use a tremendous amount of decoys. But I step back there too, is I like to use as many decoys as I have to get away with what I'm trying to do. If I'm hunting the act or if I'm running traffic, I'm really trying to hide. And I use decoys to be able to hide the blinds, whether it's, black spotting around the blinds, in front of the blinds to take attention on. You're trying to be concealed, and you use decoys as a call, because it's a visual call. Geese will see you farther than they can hear you, but you're also using it as a concealment method to hide the blinds. So, when I'm running traffic, I do like to bulk up considerably, because, you're trying to make them think or make them believe that, this is where the new party is for the day. We might want to come stop and check it out.
When you talk about using, as many decoys as you need to get away with what you're trying to do, we get a lot of questions also from our listeners about decoys, and a lot of the guys that listen to our show are new, and they're kind of trying to get into the sport. They may not have a bunch of decoys at their disposal to use kind of in these situations. So, one thing we talk about, with guys when they email us is, getting into, silhouettes and things like that. They're a little bit more affordable and, maybe easier for guys to transport that are just kind of getting started. Where do you stand with, silhouettes and using them either as your primary decoy or as a filler kind of for your spread?
anything I have, everything I have in my trailer is a tool. It's a tool. You know, my trailer, I say this all the time, it gets repetitive, but my trailer is a tool chest. It's a tool crib. And I've got a tremendous amount of tools in there, but I don't use every tool for every job, but I have them available. Silhouettes are a tool. They're a great tool. They fit a niche. You can use them, you know, standalone. If you got to hump a bunch of decoys, walk them out into the field, they carry a tremendous amount out there. You can use them as filler, you know, to bulk up your spread if you're running traffic. They're a great tool. And you talk about, you know, guys just getting into the sport that don't, you get into it, you've got a budget and you're just starting out, you may only have a couple of dozen decoys. Well, my theory was that is, you know, if you have a couple dozen decoys and I have a couple dozen decoys and you got a couple other buddies with a few dozen decoys, it doesn't take too many buddies and you've got a pretty good sized spread that you can utilize. And like I said, you know, on any given day, you don't have to use every tool for every job. But if you're going to run traffic and you need to bulk up, if you've got 4 or 5 of you and each of you own 2 to 4 dozen decoys, that's a pretty good size spread.
Yeah, that's how our group usually does it too. You know, Josh will bring some up, or, you know, all the other guys that we hunt with, we're always combining, and, you know, it seems to work. It's not always fair to always put the burden on one guy to come with, you know, 7 or 8 dozen decoys into the field. But Shawn, let me ask you, you know, being a world champ caller, when you're hunting pressured geese, talk about, you know, do you find that they're call shy a lot, or are they more responsive to a lot of calling? Like how is your approach in that respect?
Well, I think stale geese aren't necessarily call shy. They're more or less condition shy. You know, it's that same, you know, like if you're back in school and you're walking down the hallway and you know, you walk by the same kid every day and he pushes you. Well, you got 2 options. One, you either, you know, you find a new route, or 2, you punch him back. And geese can't do that. So that, you know, geese get conditioned every day to the same scenario. You know, they see the same spread of decoys and same size. They see the layouts that aren't completely camouflaged. They see the fact that, or, you know, I always say, you know, what's the first thing, you know, you do when you see a flock of geese? You know, geese, get in, call, flag. Well, that's, you know, we all fall into that paradigm, and the geese get conditioned to that. You know, they get conditioned to seeing decoys in the same field. They get conditioned to seeing the same size decoy spread, you know, that everybody can fit in the back of their pickup truck or their trailer. They get conditioned to what them layout blinds look like because, you know, a lot of guys, you know, we get lazy because it's not the thing that we want to, you know, take the time to do. You know, brushing blinds isn't, you know, a glory job, but it's probably the most important job that we can do. In fact, it is. Because if you can't hide from them, you're never going to kill them.
No, I think that makes a ton of sense. You know, you have to mix it up. You have to be versatile when it comes to your approach. And
that's why I go back to, you know, you want to know what's working in the area. And if you're hunting the area every day, you notice that. But like me, if I come into an area, I kind of rely on local knowledge. Local knowledge is going to tell you a lot. They're going to tell you exactly what the birds have been doing and what they've been doing. And as you get condition smart, you want to try doing something different. And when I was talking about, you know, everybody picks up a call, everybody picks up a flag. And calls are still effective and flags are still effective, but, you know, sometimes you got to play the opposite. Play to nobody's home. Let them fly by you. Let them get 50, 80, 100 yards past you, and then just pick up your call and cluck a few times and hit that flag. And a lot of times that'll work because it's something that they're totally not used. They're not used to, you know, not hearing birds, you know, not hearing people call. You know, most people are picking up a call and just blowing the guts out of the end of the call from the time they see them to the time they fly, you know, past them and out of hearing range. But sometimes, you know, just doing those little things, being subtle, being different, and, you know, can be the key to success on those, you know, those pressured, those stale geese.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm glad that you brought up flagging, because I always, you know, every other guest, I always ask about flagging and just motion in general. Is there, you know, how important is that, not only to high pressured geese, but, you know, you're hidden. How important is it to, you know, bring a little bit of life to your decoy spread?
I'm be 100% honest with you. I think it's more important to us as hunters than it is to actual geese in the situations. And here's what I mean by that. You know, there's so many decoys on the market today that are quote unquote motion decoys. Well, in order for a motion decoy to work, it takes, one key ingredient, and that's wind. And the more wind you have, the more motion you have in the decoys. Well, on a windy day, you don't need motion in your decoys because everything's moving. The leaves are blowing, the grass is blowing, everything's got life to it, everything's moving. The time you need motion is when the motion decoys don't work because that key ingredient isn't there. Wind isn't blowing, everything's still. That's when you need motion. And, we've even, rigged up jerk strings and jerk cords. There's a couple products on the market. And I think motion is more critical on the windless days than it is on the days where there is actual wind. And right now there isn't many product out there, to help that. So if somebody perfects that, they're going to be in, got a winner going.
It's something to start thinking about there.
Goose calls, I'm convinced, are not nearly as effective on windless days as they are days with wind. Days with wind, if you ever did some practicing, if you took one guy with a flag and a goose call, and then took a couple guys and walked 200 yards downwind and blew the call and waved the flag, and then go crosswind and move a little farther crosswind, and then go 100 yards, 200, 400 yards upwind, you'll start to see and hear. The video is cool to see the flag going, but then your ears and the microphone pick up the call. But you'll notice that you don't hear a call very much on a windy day unless you're directly downwind, and it's still kind of muffled. And you hear it plain as day when there's no wind. And as much as, we want to think we sound like geese, they're still mechanical apparatuses, and they're not 100% true live Mother Nature. And I think, sometimes in the windless days they can pick out a goose call. I think, just a quieter call on windless days works better than just a loud high-pitched one.
Definitely a ton of good tips there. And, you opened up talking about concealment. You have to be hidden. Are there any other things that hunters just should not do?
Skyboast.
I think that's a perfect answer.
Downwind other people. That's that's a couple of, hunting public areas and stuff. You get, waterfowlers in general are pretty cutthroat, and I just think, waterfowlers in general, we could show our fellow hunters a little more respect sometimes. And, if somebody's in a field already and, try to buddy up and hunt together, if not, then maybe take the day off or go, pick a field down the road somewhere. But, and that goes back to running traffic again, too. I mean, that's, a lot of times you certainly don't have to share the field with people when you're running traffic much, because most people want to hunt the eggs. But, running traffic, back to that discussion, I like, the type of field that I hunt when I run traffic is oftentimes different than when we're hunting, on the eggs. Because, from a visibility standpoint, I want these geese to be able to see us, and I want to take advantage of that visual call, the decoys, that they're going to see from a greater distance. So I may pick a green field, a wheat field, or, a cut alfalfa or a bean field or something like that for visibility standpoint, because they're going to see you, a lot farther, and then just, maybe pick an edge or a hedgerow or something, the grass line to hide the blinds in.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That was actually going to be my next question. When you're hunting, traffic, and, when you're looking to pick that location now, you touched on this, but I just want you, if you can elaborate a little bit further. Some guys say, that in order to effectively hunt traffic, you have to be, in the flight path between, the roost and the feed, where they're trying to go. You've mentioned, being off that flight path a little bit. How far do you think you can, realistically be, off of that route that they're taking to effectively have a chance to work them birds in?
They have to either be able to A, see you, or B, hear you. And if they can't do either one of them, then you're in trouble. So, it just depends on the conditions, the wind direction. If it's foggy, cloudy, snowy, they got to be able to see you. And that's why, get a big hilltop, bigger vantage area, a green field or a bean field or something like that. We talked about, guys just getting into this and not having many decoys. Well, you can go buy some of that plastic corrugated pretty cheap, 4x8 sheet. You can get a dozen black and white silhouettes out of those. Just kind of, mist it with flat black or something. And you don't even really have to hit the light on them. Just that black that's going to show up. And, black and white, so you guys are from out east and, you get down on the eastern shore, you get down in southern Illinois, them things are still effective. You go down, southern Illinois, there's places that still put out 5, 6, 7,000 black and white silhouettes in their clubs and their property. And they still work. They're still effective. They draw, especially on migrators, new geese, and, pulling birds from long distance because it's a good visual reference at the call.
Yeah, I was actually just up in Easton, Maryland for the Waterfowl Festival a couple weekends ago. And, when you take a look at some of the exhibits that they have up there and, some of the decoys that, the old timers used back in those days, I assure you that they killed birds over those just as much as, guys are doing today probably.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think what you find, it goes back to birds getting conditioned smart, and it all goes in a circle. What's effective now won't be effective in a few years, and what was effective 10 years ago will be effective again. It's just the things that we're doing and the way we're hunting now, the birds just get conditioned smart to it, and then, we start trying something different, and it's like opening day all over again. A little bit of snow on the ground can make scale birds act like it's opening day again, and it's just because it's different. It puts a little stress in their life. Makes them think or feel they got to get out and feed real hard and heavy. And it also makes your decoy stand out, and it makes their appearance change a little bit. So it kind of throws a little wrinkle in it for you.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. We just had a bang out snow hunt up here. We got, it was freezing rain during it, but I mean, those birds they would not stop coming. I wish that we had 15 guys in the field, because it would have. We all would have limited out, and it was like opening day again. Like there's nothing stopping them from getting in that field.
And the only thing that changed was you had a little bit of snow, a little bit of stress in their life, something, a little bit of stress. But the geese, they just want to survive the next day. They just want food, water, shelter, survive, and breed in the spring. And if you don't have, if conditions are the weather kind of gets stale, starts warming up, and there's not a lot of stress in their life, they don't really have to do anything. It's, when the fronts start moving in and the weather starts changing, that starts to have a little stress, telling them they gotta do this, they gotta move on, get ready to migrate. That's when, your best hunting is.
So Shawn, let me ask you a little bit more on the hunting traffic situation there. First I want to talk about, you say, you want to be seen. So I'm thinking your answer is yes to a large spread. You want to put a lot of birds out. On the other hand, I've read a lot of things about not really having a system to putting the decoys out when you're hunting traffic. And what I mean by that, some guys say, we'll put birds 80 yards away and we'll put, some right around us. There's really no U shape or, as far as paying attention to the wind so much. How do you take any approach like that, or do you still hunt it like you would do a normal setup?
I don't, and again, I don't have any, I try not to have any canned type setups. I don't go, okay, well, I'm hunting the X today, I'm going to set up a U. And I'm hunting traffic today, I'm going to set up an X. It all is kind of situational and dependent on the field, the type of birds, what I can expect as far as concealment and that kind of stuff. But my typical decoy spread is what I call a dump spread. You basically just dump it all out, set it up, and then I'll step back and look at it. And then I'll go, okay, I want them to land here. I don't want them to land here. And you look at it kind of like a Walmart parking lot or a movie theater, all the seats. And you put cars, or you put cars in the parking spots, where you don't want other cars to park, and you leave openings where you want them to park. Same deal, a movie theater. When you walk in a movie theater, what do you look for? You look for empty seats. You look for a place to sit down. And that's the same thing with a decoy spread. I'm going to put decoys, kind of where I don't want them to land and leave openings where I want them to land. And I try to give them, several options, plenty of options, and particularly, out in front, somewhere out in front where, guys aren't shooting over the top of each other or, crossing over.
Yeah, without a doubt. And let me just ask you about your calling techniques. Compared to pressure birds or just a normal being on the X. When you're hunting traffic, do you just get loud with it? Do you bring it all out?
Well, when you're running traffic, and I gotta make a comment here. My dog has the worst gas right now. I mean, it's horrible. It's just one after another. So I'm a little lightheaded. But, when it comes to calling geese, do what you have to do to make them do what you want them to do. And if they're coming at you, you don't need to do anything, right? Because they're already coming at you. So you need to adjust your pitch, cadence, and tempo. And I'm not one of them guys that prescribe to, at 200 yards you got to blow this note, at 50 yards you got to blow this note, that note. I'm more of it has more to do with your pitch, cadence, and tempo to get them to do what you want them to do. You change, you either go lower or higher on the scale of pitch, and then you either go faster or slower on the call to get them, to react. So most of the time when you're running traffic, you're trying to talk them into doing something they didn't intend on doing that day. So majority of the time, we always try to take the temperature of the first two bunches. Hit them with start out with a little and build into as much as you need. But most of the time with running traffic, it's a lot of hard calling, power calling, and right down to the ground. There isn't much finesse to traffic calling. But again, there's no hard fast rule. You have to make adjustments as the hunt goes. So if you're power calling them, you get them to lock up, bow up, you get that singular pair to pull out of that, the flock that passing by. Sometimes you may have to back off them, and I call it trade lines. Once you get birds coming at you, continue doing what you're doing, whether it's power calling, clucking, moaning, being called, but you get them coming at you. As they start, if they're coming at you, you're doing the right thing, whatever you're doing on the call. If they start moving, sideways, starting to turn or peel, you need to change something, either, your pitch, cadence, or tempo. You either need to pick it up a lot or drop it off, a lot. So you got to make adjustments. You keep them on that straight line. That's what you're trying to do. So you adjust. You're doing whatever you're doing on the call. They start to pull away from you. You may pick up the pitch, the cadence, and tempo with it. Get a little higher pitch, a little faster, and pull them right back on that straight line and keep them coming.
A lot of things, Shawn, what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. But one thing that I know a lot of guys get confused on, and I've seen it happen in the field myself when working, traffic birds, is when it comes to flagging. And you see on TV sometimes you'll see guys outside their blinds, got the T flag just beating it, to no end, trying to attract birds and and that kind of thing. So, in your opinion, how critical is that? And also, when you're flagging birds, I mean, what exactly are you trying to accomplish, with that flag? And, are there certain times when you're reading the birds and, you flagging them on the corners or, just kind of, if you could just touch on some general flagging tips, for a situation like we're talking about here.
Yeah. I've hit on it a few times. So, like decoys, I consider a call because it's a visual call. It's making a statement. It's telling birds what you want them to do, and they can see it farther than they can hear it. Now, a flag, I consider it the same thing. Flag is another type of a visual call. It's something that geese can see from a distance farther than they can hear a goose call in most situations. So, it's a good visual reference to these geese that are flying by to make some motion and make it look like there's actually geese coming in and landing. So, I mean, we use it for fun. We've even got them on big jerk boards that, on 10-foot poles that we can raise up in the air and, get that motion out in front of us and away from our concealment area. And, there again, just like calling, you do what you have to do to keep them on a straight line. If sometimes, we just got back from a trip and the geese were hunting, and that's all they really wanted to see was the flag. And you could almost flag almost till they got in, and hit the ground in the decoys. And if you let off them, they turned. Didn't want anything to do with the goose call, but they wanted that flag. And there again, it's just reading and reacting, making adjustments through the hunt, depending on what you need. A lot of times it's just on the corners because, a goose, their vision isn't 360 all the way around them. It's about 280 degrees. So they can see everything in front of them, almost all the way behind them. But, there again, it's like peripheral vision. You just catch the motion off, in the corner of your eye. So a lot of times you let the birds get just going away from you, turned away, and you can pick up that flag, and they can be relatively close, 60, 80 yards. You can pick up a flag and hit, several double cups in a row, and it gives the appearance and the sound that another goose or somebody, another goose from another flock or another goose from that flock broke off and is going to land in the decoys, and it'll cause chaos in the flock. They'll start breaking up, and that's what you want. You want to cause chaos, get them not thinking as a group, and then you'll get, talk one into coming, and you'll get the whole bunch coming.
Is there any rhyme or reason to where the flag needs to be in the amongst the group? Are you trying to keep that centered up in the in the pocket there? Do you let your guys on the ends flag? How do you try to work that?
I don't find any rhyme or reason when it comes to that.
Okay.
I don't think it matters a ton. If you've got the wind at your back, if you've got the wind at your side, you may want the flag more on the upwind side, just to be able to pull them up tighter that way. Same with your best callers. I think your best callers need to be on the upwind side. That way, if you have to, that person has to get on a call and pull them up in. We were talking about calling earlier too, and I don't think, being a contest caller doesn't matter one iota in the field. There's a lot of contest callers that don't kill very many geese, and there's a lot of good goose hunters that didn't call 5 judges. The world depended on it. And there's truth to that. There's a difference between reading what people want, people-pleasing sounds, and what goose-pleasing sounds are, because I promise you, they're entirely different. The vocabulary that you need in a goose calling routine is entirely different and way larger than the vocabulary that you need to hunt geese in the field. You've got to be able to, in a contest, you've got to be able to show these 5 people that, how talented you are, how powerful, you can make these notes, and how many different kinds of notes you can make, be able to differentiate yourself from the rest of the crowd. Well, the geese aren't that picky. It's just, for them, it's all about pitch, cadence, and tempo. You can get away with 2 to 4 different notes and just changing your pitch, cadence, and tempo, and you can get them to do exactly what you want them to do.
Yeah, we had Kelly Powers on the show earlier in the season here, and he talked a lot about the exact same things that you just said, about just having command of the certain notes, put a lot of birds in your spreads for sure. So,
well, me and KP go way back.
Yeah.
We used to run the circuit together. But, no, and there's a lot of truth that if you take 5 guys that can make, just cluck and double cluck, and you take all 5 of them and have them cluck and double cluck together, and then pick up their pitch and tempo just a little bit and just roll up and down in speed and tempo, they can make a lot more noise and be a lot more realistic than just one person like me can do. And they're going to have different, you got 5 guys, they're all going to sound a little bit different. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have 5 different people, 5 different goose sounds in there. You take me, I can make a couple of different goose sounds, but it's still going to sound like one call. So, especially if you're running traffic, if you've got 4, 5, 6, guys that can, or more, that can blow, 2 to 3 different notes on a goose call, you can make a lot of racket and sound very realistic.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk to you all night about, calling geese for sure, and I would love to do that, but I don't want to keep you too much longer. So I'm gonna ask you 2 more questions, and we'll let you get out here on this. First, I think I know what you're gonna say to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, just to kind of reinforce the point, because I think it's super important. If you're flaring birds, you're seeing, one or two flocks come in.
I'm gonna whack the dude in the head that's 5 facing next to me.
we talk about that, and the way you were talking about concealment earlier, I figured that's where you were going to go. But we just pound on concealment and getting covered up real good. So certainly glad to hear you say that. And the final thing I'll ask you is, can you share maybe just a quick story with us? A hunt that you can think back to where you would just, it's a really pressured situation, or you just thought the deck was stacked against you for whatever reason, and maybe just share some of the tips or just some of the techniques that you use to kind of get over the those odds and turn the hunt into a good day for you.
One story comes to my mind. We got a buddy who runs an outfitter service, and we go up there hunting every year, and we kind of do our own scouting and whatnot. But it was the first day there, and we didn't have a chance to scout. And they said, well, so-and-so guy is in this field, and he saw a lot of geese, but he didn't kill them. He's hunted that field 2 days in a row now and didn't do very well. But, there's a lot of geese flying over. You guys want to give it a shot? And I was like, well, when you got no other choice, yeah, let's do it. We didn't scout. So, I talked to the guide, and I said, okay, what have you been doing? What have you been doing? How you been hiding, this and that? And, it was just him, and he had to set all the decoys and grass all the blinds for all the customers and do all this. And he was using about 6 dozen decoys and whatnot, and just him calling. And I said, okay, all right. So then I thought, in my head, what am I going to do? Formulate a plan. We get there in the morning. I said, all right, guys, this is what's going on. This is how, Troubler's been having a lot of geese been flying over this field, a couple thousand geese flying over the top of it. We're running traffic. What can we do that's different? We got to do something different because we know what's not working. And if we're going to try what wasn't working, we're probably going to expect the same results, right? So, we chose to set out an extremely large set of decoys. I put out every decoy I had for training. We put out about 30 dozen decoys. And I had a big blob right when we were sitting, and left that deal I was telling the duck spread. We dumped all the decoys out and pulled where we wanted them to land. Then I took decoys. I grabbed 6, 8, 10, 12, at a time. They'll put some 100 yards down this way, some 75 over here, another one 150 yards over here. And if you were to sit back and look at it from the road, it looked like looks like a field of live geese, where you get them, there'll be a big mass of them, and there'll be a group here, a group sitting here, a group over there. And it worked. And what happened, they would come in there, and there's 3 really good callers in our group, and a 4th guy who could, just make 2 or 3 notes. And we were able to make that, a lot of racket, real realistic racket, be able to call them down. And by having the decoys so spread out, you drop them down lower out in front of you. They wouldn't come in as vertical above you. And when they come in vertical high above you and straight down, they can pick those layout lines out pretty good. And, if you can get them out down low in front of you, you've got a better chance of pulling them up into you. And everybody, when I tell people that I do that, I put decoys 100, 150 yards, sometimes 200 yards away. And they look at you like, well, what if geese land out there? I said, well, what if I don't put them decoys out there and they flare on me? Every bird flares on me, so they try to come in vertical. I'd much rather try to pull a goose in that's short-stopping me in the field than one that's coming in vertical and flares. One bird wants to land short and hasn't seen you. That's easier to call in than one that's already flared. And you will, invariably, if you set up a decoy spread like that, you will have birds that are going to land short. That's just in here. But I promise you, you'll have far less geese will land out in front of you than what would have flared over the top of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, and I'd read an article.
And it works because nobody else does it.
Yeah, I'd read an article about that here not that long ago, similar, but they were talking about hunting snows and stuff like that. But I can definitely see where that would be effective, and I think probably the biggest challenge with that is just getting over the fear of putting out decoys that far away, and how unnatural that would feel.
And it is, but if and it happens, but and again, like I said, it's that same deal. If they're gonna, if they flare at you when they're over the top of you, you're not gonna finish it. Your success rate of calling a flared bird back around and finishing the decoys is pretty low. Your success rate is a lot higher of getting birds out low in front of you and pulling them up into your decoys. So it does take a little bit, guys are always, you get some new guys hunting with us, every now and then, and you start putting decoys out there like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? You just sit back, relax. This is why we do it. We want them to get low up. And, and I really learned that deal from filming because, you've got the camera. I don't care. If you can see them, they can see you. That's how I always see it. But with the camera's got to see them. So if the camera can see them, they can see the camera. So if you've got them coming in on the top of you, they can pick out them layout blinds and they can pick out the camera guys. So it's always trying to get them birds low out in front of you so that you can work them with a call.
Right. Well, I'd love to meet the guy that wants to sit there and argue with you in the field about decoy spreads and stuff. I'm sure that's a real short conversation.
No, but I don't claim to know everything, and debate is good. I like to hear good debate because it makes you think outside the box to try something new and different. So yeah, trust me, it does happen in our quite a bit.
Well, Shawn, we appreciate you giving us a few minutes here and talking about, kind of hunting pressured geese and, hunting traffic situations and stuff like that. And we encourage everyone to check you out on RNT-V, on the Sportsman's channel, and, all the DVD stuff you got going on. And I also wanted to just mention really quickly, you have a really great video on YouTube. It's about a 30-minute video that you go really in depth about, tuning goose, short reed goose calls and, breaking down the parts and stuff like that. And I just think that's a really, really good video. So anybody out there listening that, is trying to figure out how to work a call and put it all together and that kind of stuff, you can check out, Shawn's video on YouTube's got a really, really well put together one there. So again, Shawn, we really appreciate your time. We enjoyed talking with you, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. And I'm going to go let this dog outside.
You better get to it. All right. Take care.
Oh, man. Hey, take care.
All right, Dan. There's a lot of that interview that I know that I'm going to be able to take away and, use and implement in my hunting down here in Virginia. What say you?
So much information. And we talk about confidence all the time, and that's a very confident man right there. He knows how to put birds on the ground. So, anything that he said that you can take away from it, I would take away from it and try it out, because most likely it's probably going to work. So, it was a great interview. I thank him again for coming on, and I'm excited to try a few things out here in the late season.
The thing I really enjoyed about talking with Shawn on this issue is that, so oftentimes you get different, people and personalities and things that, they want to talk about waterfowl hunting and all this, that, and the other. And it makes it seem like it's harder than it has to be. But, Shawn kind of had some pretty basic principles, as far as, his approach to waterfowl hunting. He's flexible. He keeps it simple. He's just sort of takes a look at what's going on and reacts to what he sees. He doesn't overthink that, obviously he's not real big into sky busting, as you and I are also not real big into sky busting. But some of the things that he mentioned, stress, when we're talking to him, I wrote down from our notes, stress equals dead geese, because like he mentioned, that first snow of the year, something like that little wrinkle of stress in their life, boy, it could just turn it on like crazy. So, if you're thinking about getting out and, it's, you're looking at the weather change or something like that, something that can create that stress in the bird's life, man, take advantage of that, for sure. And, obviously I'm a fan of the dump spread, big proponent of that technique. I really like the Walmart analogy. And, the thing that really kind of resonates with me when I listen, to what Shawn's saying is, do what you have to get the geese to do what you want them to do. So, so many guys say, oh, don't call them, don't call, or you're calling too much, you're, do this, do that. Whatever you got to do to make the geese do what you want them to do, That's exactly what you should be doing. So just because you read in a magazine or you hear on this podcast, you know, a technique or something that other guys say to use, don't let that, you know, put you in a box of something that you know, you're not going to try, because, you know, that's not how the pros do it on TV, or that's not what you read in the DU magazine. You know, if the birds react favorably to something that you do, keep doing it. But I can tell you, if you're sitting there and birds are flying away from you and they're not giving you the time of day and you just sit there and do nothing, you're not going to kill any birds. So it's not going to do you any harm to flag, to call, to do this, to do that. You know, try these things. And when you hit that, stay on it and, you know, and run that down until it, you know, doesn't work any longer. So those are all great things that, you know, I take away from, you know, talking with Shawn, and, you know, we certainly appreciate him giving us time and coming on the show, and hope you all enjoyed hearing us chat with him. So as we kind of wrap up the show here, Dan, I'm obviously getting ready to leave for Jamaica, and you know, where it's going to be warm, and I'm really looking forward to that. But we've got something that I'm going to touch on here with this week's parting shot that's a very, very serious topic, and unfortunately it doesn't deal with warm weather. It deals with the cold, frigid temperatures and some of those kind of stuff. So anything else that you'd like to share with the audience this week before I go ahead and get into that?
You know, we end every segment by saying have fun and, you know, just stay safe. So, you know, I know what you're leading into here, and like you said, it is very serious, and go ahead into it.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and wrap up the show with this week's parting shot. So this week's party shot is dealing with a very serious issue, and we've touched on this before in the show, but it has to do with safety. We had a good friend of the show just this morning take a dip in the water while duck hunting. Fortunately enough, he was in a shallow water situation where it wasn't, you know, immediate life-threatening situation. But when you're hunting waterfowl, especially in deeper water, it can get life-threatening very, very quickly. So when you're dealing with cold temperatures and you're dealing with, you know, potentially dangerous situations, always take that extra care to make sure that you're in a safe environment before you fire your gun and before you, you know, settle in for your hunt. Also, have a plan. Should you fall in the water, what are you going to do? Do you have dry clothes? Do you have access to a cell phone and a dry pouch? Things of that nature. If you're going to be wading in water, make sure you have a wader belt on, so that if you do go in over your waders, the water doesn't all the way down. Wear your life preserver. It can save your life. All of these things are very, very important and should not be overlooked this time of year. The cold weather is the best time of the year to hunt ducks. Don't make a mistake and have it ruin your time in the field. Take the precautions to be safe out there. That's going to do it for episode 16 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast. We hope you enjoyed our review of the Redhead, and we appreciate Shawn Stahl coming on the show to talk about running traffic and hunting pressured Canadas. You can check us out on hpoutdoors.com. We have all of our episodes there. You can also check us out on iTunes. If you haven't had the opportunity yet, we'd appreciate a 5-star rating and review, and we thank you to all of those that have already done so. Again, I'm off to Jamaica, so until next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.